Hey guys, how you doing? Um, oh geez, I just got off work, just walking home. Don't really, I didn't really have my head in the politics today, honestly. I was just kind of walking around doing my job, getting it done. Um, there's this sort of mythical narrative that goes around in capitalism, uh, that, oh well, we're all giving equal time, right? Like, you get 8 hours for work, 8 hours for yourself, 8 hours for rest in a day. What's the problem? But it's inaccurate, is what it is. Like, you spend a good portion of your mornings getting ready for work and then traveling to work. Those things are not included in your pay. And then you spend a good period of time after that going home from work, eating, getting yourself prepared and cleaned up, and none of that is included in your paycheck. That's all for you, right? And if you're one of these poor fools who lives out in the suburbs and you're traveling an hour or more to get to your job, I mean, for God's sakes, that's an incredible amount of time that's just stolen from you as far as anyone should be concerned. I remember I was serving people when I used to work at a coffee shop, Starbucks. I did my time at Starbucks, and people would continuously, it happened all of the time, where people would tell me that they just traveled an hour and a half to have a conversation that could have been done in an email. It's this old school boomer mentality, right? That you have to have these decisions made face to face, to trust them. And there isn't, meanwhile, us millennials, right? We look at the situation and we just go, that's dumb. Like, why are we wasting everybody's time like this? And there's this sacrificial quality that exists in capitalism, that what they want you to do is they don't want you to be able to have any amount of time to organize as a community, to be able to fight back against them. That the decision is theirs to make for how the society should be organized. And of course, they're going to organize it so that they're at the top. And then delude the conversation by saying that this is the natural order of things, because they themselves are typically fairly delusional and illiterate, so they can believe it. And even if they don't believe it, that this is a natural arrangement, they're still benefiting from it greatly, so why would they do anything to stop it? And if you actually stand up and say, there are many ways to organize a society, there are many ways to organize a structure, and nature itself shows many different ways to organize societies. Like, nothing to me is more asinine than every so often on my YouTube feed, a critique of Jordan Peterson will still pop up, which drives me crazy. I wish it would stop, but probably because I'm talking about him in this video still. And he became sort of renowned for putting up a defense of hierarchical top-down structures, because you can observe them in nature. He would use the lobster as an example. But I mean, I worked as a beekeeper for a season, and I'm still trying to set up a hive. Here in Toronto, it's difficult to do. And of course, this COVID situation just blew the whole thing out of the water. No chance of actually making that happen. But bees don't organize themselves in top-down hierarchies. Bees organize themselves democratically. I bet you didn't know that, right? The queen is a misnomer, right? The queen is just she makes no decisions in the hive. Not a single one. her operation in the hive is as a birther. Like, a more accurate title would just be the mother, right? That her entire life cycle is that she's birthed. Her first act is typically to commit matricide, right? Because there's more than one queen that is being birthed in a hive by the workers at any one time. The first queen that comes out essentially assassinates the others before they're even able to get out of the egg. And if they are able to get out of the egg, they fight to the death. And it is a fight to the death. That's not for... it's literally who claims this hive as their own. And maybe you can call that meritocracy, but I don't know why as a capitalist you would want that as an example for your system. Although they seem to be fine with using violence and sort of this brutish way of thinking to defend how we should organize complex societies. But then the queen's life is essentially going around laying eggs until... and then she does a queen flight where she mates with a whole bunch of drones. It's not just one, right? She mates with a ton of drones from many different hives, from many different places. Killing those drones in the process, by the way. It's very brutal. But the decisions that get made in the hive, and there are decisions that are made in the hive, so a hive splits every season. And when the hive splits, how they do that is they lay the new queen eggs, right? And so the old queen is like, okay, time to skedaddle. I can't stick around here. The queen isn't responsible for laying any of these queen eggs, right? She just knows they're there, and she doesn't want to have a fight. And she's getting older, so she knows she'll lose, right? So it's time to skedaddle. This is how bees reproduce, by the way. This is how it works. And so the queen... so scout bees go out and find locations. And when a scout bee comes back into the hive, it tells the other bees where it's been through dance. That's how bees communicate, through dancing. The bees that see what this scout bee is saying take the dance up in support. Now, another scout bee can come and disagree with this, or simply inform the hive of a good location that it has found, and it can begin dancing. And then other bees can take up the dance of that particular bee. And depending on the insistence of the original bee, other bees will also become quite insistent. And this can actually lead to a full-on dance-off. It really is what it is a full-on dance-off in the hive, where it can split, and this alone can split the hive. It's been observed that colonies sometimes will split and separate just because of this dance. But most of the time, some kind of consensus is reached amongst the populace, and they grab the queen and they split and they leave. And the queen takes the eldest bees with her, leaving the youngest bees to rear and protect their new queen. And then, of course, this process begins anew and continues onward. A colony splits once, perhaps twice, in a season. Now, what I just described is called democracy, right? The entire group was faced with a choice. They made their decision. Maybe they had disagreement amongst one another, but finally they come to their conclusion and they act upon it. This is not a top-down hierarchy. This is not a single entity, a single person making a decision and the whole organization needing to bend to the will of that single organization. This is a democracy, observable in nature. And I'm supposed to put that aside because there are lobsters that fight in the bottom of the ocean. The sort of petty nature of conservative capitalism that wants to raise itself that that and requires these sort of idiotic, illiterate, simplistic self-descriptions of itself that have nothing to do with what's real or genuine in the world. It's just completely indicative of a childish society and a childish viewpoint that needs to disappear. We can't continue to organize ourselves in a way where we allow these sociopathic children to seize control and be completely detached from any possible intelligent structure or thinking. Like, these people are literally born into the highest levels of privilege. They have zero actual life experience. Their life experience is sacrificing their life to an institution. And so anything, or not even sacrificing their life to an institution, but just living their life with enormous sums of wealth, where they don't need to make any decisions and they don't actually experience anything. And everything they say and everything they do is specifically done to delude the populace into allowing them to maintain their position of privilege. The only time they speak in public, if they do speak in public at all, is to lie to you, is to somehow trick you into believing that they are necessary or good. And they're completely not. They have no explanation for why they should be in power. And when they do attempt to explain their positions of power, they sound like psychopaths. They sound like crazed lunatics who genuinely believe that they have attained some kind of godhood where they should be permitted to rule by divine right. That's fundamentally the backbone of their argument. They were born rich. Some of them genuinely say, I'm the smartest, while they're completely illiterate and they don't know anything about the subject matter that they're even talking about. But because they hold, like, why shouldn't they say that they're the smartest? Because they were the ones who were born rich, right? You should be smart like me. I was born rich. You should have been born rich too. That's what you should have thought of that before you were born peasants. It's this genuinely evil position. Why I can't support this system any longer, and I can't spend a moment defending a structure that's designed to eat itself like this. Like, we need to do better. We have to do better. We've got to start genuinely fighting back, and we're really not. Like, we're really not. We're still in a negotiation phase. We're still in a phase where we think we have to negotiate with these psychopaths and sociopaths. Like, we haven't actually come to realize that, no, what we need to do is organize ourselves and decimate this group. That this group needs to be expunged from the society. And we're not quite there yet. And most Western societies are not there yet. And in the meantime, while we're eating ourselves and absolutely collapsing under the weight of our own hubris, communist societies, like China, for example, are taking the world over. And that's a whole video that I can discuss, but it's the truth that as we decline and as we fall into this sort of disrepair and this absurd nonsense position that we find us in, a communist society, the Communist Party of China, and the People's Republic of China are taking the world over. As well they should, because they've organized themselves properly, because they've expunged their capitalists, because they've capped what capitalists are capable of doing. That the capitalists they do allow are in such tight measure that they don't really have an impact, or they can't have the negative impact that they have on their society the way they do here in the West. Anyway, that's the end of me, guys. Like, share, subscribe, send it around. Hope you're doing well. Good luck.